The New York Rangers fail a major early season test against the Panthers, thanks in part to a lackluster start to the game. Plus, we are calling out Mika Zibanejad for his disappearing act in this game and discussing the Rangers sending Matt Rempe to the Hartford Wolfpack.
You're Locked on the New York Rangers, your daily podcast on the New York Rangers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back, Blue Shirts fans, to episode number 1168 of the Locked On New York Rangers podcast. I'm your host, John Chick. Just want to thank you guys, as always, for making Locked On New York Rangers your first listen every day. We are free and available on all platforms, including YouTube. And today's episode of Locked On New York Rangers is brought to you by FanDuel. Place your first $5 bet, and you'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. And we are, of course, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. So let me just say right off the top of the show here, if it's not already painfully obvious, very clearly I am dealing with a cold right now, so I apologize for the sound of my voice. Going to do my best to just talk a little slower, a little quieter, and hopefully we can get through this thing, because I do have a lot to say about this 3-1 loss by the Rangers to the Panthers last night. And there's a lot of different reasons you can look at as far as, why the Rangers lost this game. And why they lost in, I would say, semi-convincing fashion to the defending Stanley Cup champions here. But for me, the two biggest reasons were, first of all, the bad start to the game. This finally, bit the Rangers. They kind of been playing with fire a little bit this season when it comes to lackluster starts. And against a good team like the Panthers, they showed you that you're not going to be able to get away with it when you're playing up against, one of the elite teams in the league. And the other big reason for me, the two main reasons, number two would be Sergei Bobrovsky. He was fantastic in this game, and whenever the Rangers were able to create any kind of offense, they just could not get the puck by Bobrovsky. There were other reasons too. Honorable mention to the Mika Zibanejad line having kind of a rough night. We're going to talk a little bit about Mika a little bit later in today's episode. But for right now, let's go ahead. I want to walk through kind of the start of this game, the first opening few minutes here, talk about some of the plays that were made, some of the plays that weren't made, some of the goals that were scored, and we're going to get into, after that, kind of a bigger picture look at the Rangers' slow starts to games this season. But I want to have my thoughts, or share my thoughts rather, on some of these things that were happening early. First of all, the Mika line started the game along with Schneider and Trouba, but there was a stoppage 25 seconds in. So you've got the Panarin line along with Miller and Fox. Panthers get the puck out of their zone. Miller challenged his guy in the neutral zone, which may have been somewhat ill-advised, but not anything like overly terrible or anything like that. Bottom line, the Panthers get the Ranger blue line. Miller's on his guy. They're along the boards there. And for some reason, I don't know why, I don't think anybody can answer this other than Adam Fox, but Adam Fox decides to come way over to the other side of the ice, right where K'Andre Miller is. So you've got both Ranger defensemen in the defensive zone, both along the boards, and there is not a Ranger in sight anywhere near Igor Shesterkin, anywhere near the top of the goal crease there for the Rangers. The Panthers make a pass across the ice, and all alone on the doorstep was Anton Lundell, and he scores. So very strange to see Fox and Miller, both along the boards there. Fox just ridiculously out of position, and not something that you typically expect from Adam Fox, but obviously a mental mistake there, and the Panthers took advantage. And you just cannot make those kinds of mistakes, especially early in the game against a team like the Panthers. Then the Rangers special, a rough following shift. You had Miller to Fox along the boards behind the net, and then Fox kind of swept it ahead to Kakko. Kakko missed the puck. The Panthers picked it up. They controlled it. This time, Miller was able to leave the front of the net and went over to Fox's side, so we kind of got the opposite of what we saw earlier. Again, both Ranger defensemen going far to the same side of the ice, and then you've got Boquist in front on the doorstep. Tip-in try there, but Igor was able to make the save. All this happening barely a minute into the game. And then the next shift, you had a 3-on-1 due to the fact that the Rangers could not complete a very simple pass. Lindgren tried to pass it out of the defensive zone to Mancini in the neutral zone. It hit Mancini in the skate. The Panthers picked it up. They went the other way. Now, credit to Lindgren for hanging in tough here on the 3-on-1. Also credit to Mancini for rushing back here. But again, Rangers is shooting themselves in the foot early in a game against an elite team, and that's just something that you can't do. And then the Panthers make it 2-0, just 2:42 into the game. Trouba goes along the boards up to Riley Smith. And again, fairly simple pass here. Smith can't handle it. Panthers pick it up. And then Verhaeghe fires it off the far post to score unassisted. I suppose we can give assists to Trouba and Smith on this play if we really want to. But, yeah, not good. And, at this point, obviously there's a ton of game left. There's more than 57 minutes to go. the Rangers have a high-powered attack, a lot of big-time goal scorers on their team, and we've seen them come back, last season and even this season a little bit as well. Certainly they can score a lot of goals and not a lot of time, but even this early in the game, you start to realize as a fan what you're up against. And you start to realize that this is not going to be easy. This is going to be very, very difficult because every team likes to play with a lead, but I think the Panthers are especially difficult to deal with when they have a lead because it just plays right into their hands. They get that forecheck going. They basically just kind of lean on you. They don't allow any quality scoring opportunities. And once again, in the event that you actually create one, you got to deal with Sergei Bobrovsky, who obviously had his A game in this one. While we're talking to the start of this game, I might as well talk about the one good thing to the start of this game because I got to give a shout out to Sam Rosen. We got to work this in somehow. Sam Rosen, the Rangers start picking it up a little bit. They're down 2-0. Solid offensive zone possession, a lot of good hustle, a lot of big-time effort by pretty much every Ranger that was on the ice here. But Sam Rosen, he sees what's happening and he says, this is more like the game the Rangers like to play. In front, Lafreniere scores. Just a perfect, vintage Sam Rosen kind of a call there. And it was a great goal here. You had K'Andre Miller with a really nice keep-in. There was a hit by Trocheck behind the net. Trocheck's battling for the puck. Panarin steps up to get the loose puck. Nice keep-in by Lafreniere. Lafreniere went blue line to blue line, went to the other side of the rink and kept the puck in. Fox then won a 50-50 puck while taking a hit. He passes in front to Lafreniere. Lafreniere was all over the place during this ozone shift. Lafreniere, receives the pass and tucks it in with the backhand to cut the lead to 2-1. We're still not even 5 minutes into the game at this point. So this was awesome. And the Rangers, after this goal was scored, they did pick up their play considerably for, I would say, probably a good 8 or 10 minutes after this. But again, you've already dug something of a hole against a really, really good team here. And while the Rangers, I would still argue that they played well in spurts in this game. I don't think it's the complete train wreck that people are making it into. It was a disappointing performance, though. And that's the difference. The Rangers played well in spurts in this game. The Panthers played well for 60 minutes. There were times where, the Rangers had the better of play and maybe the Panthers got back on their heels a little bit, but the Panthers really didn't make any mistakes. They were just on point the entire night. They had their legs moving the entire game. And with the Rangers, that was kind of hit or miss throughout the entire night. And you see the result. The Panthers end up winning this one 3-1. There was also, we got to talk about this, a key sequence in this game where it looked like the Rangers were about to tie the game. Great play by Panarin. He was in on the forecheck pressuring the defenseman. He got the puck away from him. Pass back to the blue line to Braden Schneider. Schneider a shot. Save made. Trocheck looking to bury the rebound. He's not able to do it. Just a ridiculous skate save by Bobrovsky. And then it couldn't have been more than 30 or 45 seconds later, the Panthers end up scoring and making it 3-1, which is, of course, the final score there. So kind of a 2-goal swing in that instance. But what are the reasons for this? Why are the Rangers, for all the good things they're doing this year, and they're doing a lot of things very well, and they've got a lot of players that are off to some fantastic starts this season, but why are they scuffling consistently, it seems, at the start of games? Maybe the game against Montreal notwithstanding, because they scored, 4 goals in the first 11 minutes or whatever it was there. But this has been something of an issue. And once the Panthers scored their first goal in this game and, 45 seconds in, then they score again and it's 2 minutes in. I wanted to really kind of hone in on this because I've been watching this all season, but let's kind of try to figure out what the Rangers are doing poorly here that they end up picking up later, both in this game and the whole, first however many games of the season as a whole. So for starters, in this game, and like I said, big picture as well, I feel like early in games, they're getting beat to loose pucks. That was on full display in this one. Every time there was a puck in the corner, a puck, to a, open area of the ice, it felt like the Panthers were on it a lot quicker than the Rangers were. So that's, one thing that's definitely hurting them. They just don't seem to have the kind of jump that their opponents do off the opening faceoff. I mean, it's nice that they eventually find their game and they get rolling, and we always know they can come back, but you can't fall into that being a comfort, and again, especially against a team like the Panthers, because if you start slow, like let's use the Penguins game, for example, right? The Penguins, I would not say are an elite team, probably a bubble playoff team this year like they were last year, but the Rangers, they can get off to a little bit of a slow start in a game like that and still take control of it and go on to a dominant win, which is exactly what they did. You're not going to be able to do that against the Panthers. I feel like also the Rangers passing early in games just seems to be off in a couple of different ways. I mentioned a couple of the passes that weren't able to be handled. Trouba to Smith that led to a goal. That pass wasn't handled. Kakko fumbled a pass. We had Lindgren passing to Mancini. He couldn't handle it either. The passes are either inaccurate, and, there was one instance, I forget who it was, but the Rangers had the puck in the offensive zone. There was an errant pass that really was a pretty simple pass to make, and the puck comes out of the offensive zone. The Rangers have to go get it. But this was happening over and over. So you're either getting errant passes or you're getting accurate passes that the Rangers, for some reason, just can't handle. And that was definitely true in this game. And I think it's been true to an extent during some of the lackluster starts that we've seen from the Rangers thus far this season. So that's something to keep an eye on going forward as well. And stop me if you've heard me talk about this before on this podcast. Poor shifts after a goal is scored. I've been kind of trying to avoid this early in the season. I've been trying to convince myself that they've improved in that area. Maybe they have a little bit, but there's been too many times early in this season where, and we saw it in this game too, right after the Panthers made it 1-0, they almost made it 2-0, literally about 10 seconds later. They're just not sharp in the shift that follows a goal. I think they're also missing some defensive assignments. We saw that for sure in this game multiple times. A couple of times in which it led to a Panther goal or at least a golden scoring chance for the Panthers. So they need to be better in all those areas. And as far as like why it's happening, I mean, that's a question for the Rangers more than it is for me. I can only tell you what's happening. I'm not sure why these issues are kind of befalling the Rangers early in games. I'm not sure why they just aren't as sharp for those first 10 minutes as they are for the final 50. But I would imagine that has to be, a point of emphasis for this Ranger coaching staff and hopefully the Ranger players going forward that, we need faster starts. Nice that we can come back, but let's not always rely on that. Let's hit the ground running for a couple of these games. And hopefully that begins as soon as Saturday against Anaheim. So I'm going to keep everything rolling here. I'm going to shift our attention to the Mika Zibanejad line, and more specifically, Mika Zibanejad himself. I thought they and he really had a rough showing in this game, and we're going to get to that. Also going to talk about Matt Rempe being sent down to the AHL, and we'll do that in due time in today's episode as well. All right, we just want to take a minute to thank everybody, as always, for listening to Locked On New York Rangers, and a huge shout-out to PrizePicks. PrizePicks is the best place to get real money sports action with over 10 million members and billions of dollars in awarded winnings. PrizePicks has made daily fantasy sports accessible to all. You just pick more or less on at least 2 players for a shot to win up to 100 times your cash. Run your game all season long on PrizePicks. You can now win up to 100 times your money on PrizePicks with as little as 4 correct picks. PrizePicks is the best way to get action on sports in over 30 states, including California, Florida, Georgia, and Texas. Sign up today and get $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. Download the app today and use code LOCKEDONNHL to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Once again, download the app today and use code LOCKEDONNHL to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. All right, let's go ahead and keep everything rolling here on Locked On New York Rangers. I want to shift our attention to Mika Zibanejad, his line, and specifically Mika himself. Lackluster game, just basically invisible for most of the night. Mika specifically, but I would say both of his line mates, Chris Kreider and Riley Smith, to an extent as well. The Rangers, that line, and Mika specifically, I thought really caught a break by not having to go up against Barkov in this game. And even still, it didn't really result in much more productivity for this line. Honestly, the most noticeable thing that Mika Zibanejad did in this game, I was going to talk about it in the earlier section, but I'll talk about it now. When the Rangers were down 1-0, he got to a puck in the neutral zone and kind of like going back toward his zone, past the Ranger blue line. And he tried to make a backhand pass across the ice to the defenseman that was there. And I think it was Luostarinen. He read it all the way, and he intercepted the pass and went in alone. And Igor Shesterkin had to bail out Mika, bail out the Rangers, make a nice save, and keep the score at 1-0 to that point. But I don't know. There just wasn't enough of a Mika Zibanejad showing in this game. He was fourth among Ranger forwards with 19 minutes and 20 seconds of ice time. And I just don't think he really did anything with it. His line was on the ice for 2 of the 3 goals that the Panthers scored. Mika had literally no other stats in this game. He had no shots on goal, no block shots, no hits, absolutely nothing. Literally did nothing. He, in a game where you're up against the 2-time Eastern Conference champions, the defending Stanley Cup champions, and the team that ended your hopes and dreams of winning a Stanley Cup last year, that's what you get out of your supposed number 1 center. And, a lot of people on social media have kind of been joking, a handful of games into the season here, like, oh, the Mika line, that's now the 3rd line. And at first, it was kind of tongue-in-cheek, but, if things keep going the way they're going, that's how it's going to be. You can list them in any order you want, but very clearly the Panarin line is the top Ranger line. I think that was very firmly established last season and into this season as well. The Cooley, Chytil, Kakko line has been better as a whole than the Kreider, Mika, and Riley Smith line. I don't even think that can be debated anymore. You look at what that line has done defensively alone, and I think that kind of gives them a leg up on the New York Rangers. But, you watch this game, and again, Mika, you're getting goals, nothing out of him. And I think Filip Chytil might have been the best Ranger on the ice. You guys can tell me if you think that's true or not. But Filip Chytil is the guy that missed all of last season or almost all of last season with all these concussions. How is it possible that guy is more engaged, more competitive, more noticeable, creating more scoring opportunities than your supposed top-line center? I just, and on one hand, you got to credit Filip Chytil for that because he went out there and played great. And that's awesome. But the fact that your supposed third-line center, the guy with all the concussion issues from last year, and hopefully he's over that, how is it possible that he looks so much better than your top-line center? Certainly last night, and I would think probably, at this point, probably the entire season as a whole. And look, I know the Panthers are a phenomenal team. I get it. I don't want to overdo it here as far as, my criticism of Mika Zibanejad. I also understand the Panthers can really shut you down defensively. I mean, this is not the first time the Panthers have shut a team down this season. It certainly won't be the last. The Panthers were also coming off of a really rough 5-1 loss to the Wild, so you had to figure they were going to be hungry and wanting to turn in a much better performance than they showed in that game. But if you're getting shut down by the Panthers, look, again, I get it. Phenomenal team. They do what they do very well coached team. But then do something else if you're Mika Zibanejad. Throw a hit or something. Do something. Dive across the ice to try to prevent a pass from being completed. Just let me know you're out there. Let the Panthers know that you're out there. And Mika Zibanejad faded into the background in this game. I don't think that's unfair to say. And you look at some of the other Ranger stars, and they've had better games too, specifically Kreider and Panarin, but they at least did something. You noticed them a couple of different times in this game. Kreider didn't have his best game either, but at least he ends up, when this game is over, with 4 shots on goal and 2 hits. Again, it's something. And Kreider came very close to scoring on a couple of occasions in this game. There was one specifically where, he was in front of the net, battling for position. He redirects a shot. Bobrovsky makes a phenomenal save. The rebound is laying there. Kreider tries to sweep that home, and Bobrovsky makes another phenomenal save. So Bobrovsky basically robbing Kreider twice in the span of like a second or two there. Panarin too. Panarin was very engaged on the Lone Ranger goal that was scored. Obviously, Lafreniere got the goal. Panarin had these secondary assists. But more importantly, in the offensive zone during that shift, the Rangers were buzzing, and Panarin was part of that. And there were, 4 or 5 different Rangers that had a big hand in scoring on that play. I would say probably all 5 of them. Trocheck's battling behind the net. Lafreniere's all over the place. Panarin read the play very well to come up and get the puck. Miller had a keep in at the blue line. Fox had the primary assist. So every Ranger contributed to that. And also there was a play where Panarin went in on the forecheck. We talked about that in the last section, but he really battled for the puck, got it to Schneider. Schneider's shot was stopped. Trocheck absolutely robbed by Bobrovsky, but Panarin was in the middle of all that too. And you can't show me a play that was anything like that with Mika Zibanejad last night in this game. And again, I don't want to overdo it here because Mika has been, will continue to be a very, very important player on this team. I get sick to my stomach when I look on social media and you see people saying like really bad things about Mika. And I'm not talking about critiquing his play because that's fine. That's fair game. I do it on here. You guys do it. We all do it, right? We've all gone in on a Ranger at one time or another. But there's a picture of Mika Zibanejad with his family before the game. We've seen so many NHL players do this, and it's always really cute. But you have, an NHL player before the game, during the warm-up and everything, they're near the glass, and their wife is on the other side of the glass, and they're holding up, their infant child or whatever it might be, their 2-year-old. And Mika Zibanejad was doing that before the game. He was talking to his wife and his child, and there was a picture posted of that on Twitter. And some of the comments under this, I hate even bringing this up, but I just have to make this point because I think there are Ranger fans that go in too hard on Mika Zibanejad, but some of the comments that were posted under this picture were just absolutely deranged. And if you're one of those people, I think you need to take a look in the mirror. Look, there's people that say things like, oh, Mika Zibanejad, he lost his edge ever since he became a dad. Mika Zibanejad is allowed to start a family. Okay, that's okay. He's also allowed to be a DJ. That seems to really keep people up at night. Look, as long as Mika's not at some rave until 4 a.m. when the Rangers are playing a game the following day, I don't have a problem with that either. And if he was doing that, given the fact that everybody has a camera phone, we would know about it by now. So those things don't bother me. But what does bother me is that Mika Zibanejad was basically nowhere to be found in this game, in a game where the intensity should be really high. That's another thing. I'm not going to put that all on Mika either, because I think the Rangers in general in this game just didn't bring enough intensity. We did our crossover with Armando Velez, and he does a phenomenal job with his show. I might even watch his episode when I'm done here. But yeah, we talked about how this might be a chippy game. This might be an ugly game. It might be one of those situations where it doesn't take much to light the fuse. Never really happened. And I'm not saying if you're the Rangers, if you're Mika or anybody else on this team, that you have to go out there and play dirty and, try to dole out concussions. I'm not saying that, but a little more physicality, a little bit more edge. I don't know, get in somebody's face during a play stoppage. Give me something. Give me a little bit more fire. Just don't think there was enough of that in this game, certainly from Mika, but probably from the Rangers as a whole as well. So onward and upward, there are better days ahead for Mika Zibanejad. We've talked about before how he is a slow starter. Be nice to see him get off to a hot start one season, but it hasn't happened thus far. When you look at the point totals, very respectable. I believe right now 2 goals and 4 assists in 7 games. He does a lot of good things for the Rangers, like I said. Big part of the power play that's been elite over the last few years. Big part of the penalty kill that's been elite over the last few years as well. But the Rangers need him, and they need more out of Mika Zibanejad than what they got from him in this game. So going to keep everything rolling. I want to, like I mentioned earlier, talk a little bit about Matt Rempe and him being demoted to the Hartford Wolfpack and why that's probably the right way to go at this point in the game. Also, Chad Ruhwedel was waived, so we'll talk about that as well. All right, we just want to take a minute to let everybody know that today's episode of Locked On New York Rangers is brought to you by FanDuel. Hey, NFL fans, you can start the season with a big return on FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. You'll get started with $200 in bonus bets, guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. That is FanDuel.com. All right, let's go ahead and keep everything rolling here on Locked On New York Rangers. So a couple of transactions made by the Rangers, one before this game, one after this game. We'll start with the one that was after the game, basically the waning minutes after this game had concluded, and that is Matt Rempe being sent down to the Hartford Wolfpack. Got a lot to say about this. So first of all, 7 games so far for the Rangers. He's only played in 2 of them. Based on Rempe's usage and his ice time, even when he's in the lineup, I think this is the right call to make. Again, 2 out of 7 games so far. It's possible Jimmy Vesey is coming back. We'll talk about that very briefly in a second as well. But Rempe, he played only 3 minutes and 40 seconds against Utah. That was the home opener. And then after that, against Toronto, just 7 minutes and 37 seconds in that game. Thus far this season with the Rangers, 5 hits and a blocked shot. But as far as him going to Hartford, this is something that I pitched during the offseason before, any of the rookie games or the preseason, even before the rookie camp started. I said, I don't hate the idea of Matt Rempe beginning this upcoming season with the Hartford Wolfpack. Rempe's talked about, his goal is to have a bigger role with the Rangers, and he wants to be on the ice during, key sequences, and he wants to be a better defensive forward, and he wants to even be a guy that they can call on to kill some penalties as well. That's awesome. It's great that Matt Rempe isn't resting on his laurels, wants to become a more complete player, and doesn't just want to be that guy that fights and hits people. That's always going to be part of his game, I think, but it's nice that he wants to be a well-rounded player as well. Well, he can work on all those things with the Hartford Wolfpack. With Hartford, he'll probably get about 15 minutes per game a night. It's entirely possible he'll be in a top 6 role. And with the Wolfpack knowing that the Rangers, have a role for him or would seem to have a role for him, they did in the past, they might in the future as well, then they might want to get him on the ice a little bit more. Now, I realize Hartford has to win games too, and they got to play the players that they want to play. But you got to figure Matt Rempe, it's a lock that he'll have a far bigger role for the Wolfpack than he currently has for the Rangers. So this could be a good thing. My one issue with this, with the Rangers and how they've handled Rempe so far, is very simple. And it's something that I talked about a while back when it became apparent that Rempe was not going to be in the lineup every night or even close to every single night. Matt Rempe was not afforded the opportunity to play in the 2 rookie games against the Philadelphia Flyers. The Rangers rookies played the Flyers rookies for 2 games before the training camp started, before the preseason started. And if Rempe truly was on the roster bubble, and if he truly was somebody that was not going to play every night or even close to that, then he should have been afforded the opportunity to play in those 2 rookie games and put his best foot forward very early in the process in the preseason. Now, it's possible you might hear that and think that I'm exaggerating the importance of those 2 rookie games, and maybe a little bit I am. But Think about the two players that really stood out for the Rangers in those two rookie games. The two stars, the two guys that were all over the ice, the two guys that were turning heads, the two guys that were really getting us Ranger fans really excited for their chances of making the team and what they could bring to the table if they did make the team. Those two players were Adam Edstrom and Victor Mancini. Far and away, the two best players on the ice for those two rookie games against the Flyers. And look what's happened since then. Both of them were less than 50-50 to make the team coming into the season. They both made the team anyway. I mean, especially Mancini. He was a serious long shot, and he made the team. And now both of those players have played in all 7 of the Rangers' first 7 regular season games. So they basically stole the show in those two rookie games. And obviously they had a good training camp and a really good preseason as well, both Edstrom and Mancini, but it all started there. So if Matt Rempe, if you're not sure that he's going to be in the lineup, then why is he not being given that same opportunity to play in those two rookie games and get things kind of rolling for himself, playing some, fairly high intensity games against the Flyer rookies? Because players on both sides, the Rangers and Flyers, both, teams of young players for the rookie games, trying to make a strong impression on their respective teams. Matt Rempe should have been out there. Matt Rempe should have been given that opportunity, and he wasn't. And, at first, we thought maybe this is a good sign for Matt Rempe, because if they don't want him to play in the rookie games, then very clearly they feel like he doesn't have anything left to prove, and he's going to be in the lineup most nights once the regular season begins. And that hasn't been the case at all. He's only been out there for 2 out of 7, and now he heads to the Hartford Wolfpack. So I feel like the Rangers kind of did him a disservice, and it was somewhat unfair to him not letting him play in those games. But again, onward and upward, he'll go to Hartford, he'll get more ice time, and hopefully he can become a more complete player. And whenever the Rangers feel like they need him, they can call him back up. But honestly, the writing was on the wall for this to happen as soon as we saw the lineup for this game against the Panthers. Because if you're not going to play Matt Rempe against the Panthers, this notoriously, relentless forechecking team, this heavy team, this physical team, if you're not going to put Matt Rempe out there for that matchup, then when are you going to use him? And apparently not anytime soon. They're going to send him to the Hartford Wolfpack, and we'll see if he makes it back up anytime soon. Also, this could be an indication. I have not seen anything definitive here, but this could be an indication that Jimmy Vesey is just about ready. That's going to be interesting as well, because even with Matt Rempe now at least temporarily out of the picture, you kind of have the same situation where you've got 4 forwards for 3 spots on the fourth line. Adam Edstrom and Sam Carrick, I feel like have both really played well. Sam Carrick, kind of an under-the-radar free agent pickup, and obviously you have to keep expectations in check. You're not bringing in this guy to, quarterback the top power play unit. You're not bringing him in here to be on the ice at the end of a game when you're down by a goal, or to be a point-per-game player or anything like that. But he's played some hard-nosed hockey. He's been physical, scored the first goal of the season for the Rangers, has had some other scoring chances too, and Edstrom's been awesome. Edstrom, he in this game, Edstrom that is, made a phenomenal play. And the Rangers were down 2-1. This is that little surge that they had here where you thought they were going to get back into the game. But he was pressuring his guy at the Ranger blue line, tipped the puck away into the neutral zone, and took off like he was shot out of a cannon. I mean, I kind of knew that Edstrom, for his size, had pretty good speed, but man, did he look fast on this. He's just flying up the left side, picks up the puck, draws the defenseman toward him, passes to his right to Brodzinski. Brodzinski, great chance on the doorstep, and just one of Sergei Bobrovsky's many fantastic saves in this game. But regardless, Edstrom and Carrick both look great. They both played all 7 games. I don't know that you're going to take one of them out of the lineup. I guess you could for just one game, and it wouldn't, kill you or anything like that. But that kind of leaves it down to Vesey versus Brodzinski. And I get the feeling that they'll probably go with Vesey. And it's unfortunate, Brodzinski, he's hung in there and finally become something of an NHL regular after all these years. But I would imagine once Vesey is healthy, you will see him go back into the lineup, and you'll see probably Brodzinski as the odd man out. The other transaction that the Rangers made, and this was before the game started, Chad Ruhwedel was placed on waivers. It's not anything that he did wrong. He played the 1 game for the Rangers earlier this season, thought he did fine. Played 5 games for the Rangers last year in the regular season after the trade with the Penguins, thought he did fine there too. But the Rangers want to go with 7 defensemen, and they also want Victor Mancini in the lineup. So with that being the case, there aren't really many options, because once you make the determination that Mancini is going to be in the lineup every night, and I think that is the right decision, you're not going to send Mancini down to the minors, obviously. Now, if Mancini had been sent to the AHL, he would be waiver exempt, would not have to pass through waivers. But they want Mancini in the lineup. They want the best team possible, and that's clearly the way to go. So if you're going to go with 7 defensemen, you've got 2 options. You either waive Zach Jones or waive Chad Ruhwedel, and that's not even a debate to be had. Zach Jones is obviously, gone through his trials and tribulations, and we keep thinking he's going to be a regular, and it never really happens. But you're not going to expose Zach Jones to waivers, because there's a good chance, I think even a likelihood, that somebody would claim him if that was the case. I mean, it would be nice if Zach Jones isn't going to play for the Rangers to get him to play for the Wolfpack, But for that to happen, he has to go through waivers, and that is not a risk worth taking in the slightest. So you put Chad Ruhwedel on waivers, and you see what happens. I believe we're coming up on about 24 hours, not too long from now. So we'll see if he gets claimed or not. I can't imagine Ruhwedel is going to get claimed because, he was a free agent this past offseason, and he re-signed with the Rangers on a one-year deal at the league minimum. So anybody that wanted him could have gone out and gotten him there just by offering him slightly more than the Rangers were offering him. The only way that he would even conceivably get claimed is if there's a team out there that maybe they've had a lot of injuries to their blue line and they're kind of desperate and, okay, let's bring in this veteran. You never know for sure. We saw Jared Tenorti get claimed a few years ago. Dryden Hunt was another one, but I would imagine Chad Ruhwedel makes it through waivers unclaimed, and I hope he does because I think he's a solid veteran defenseman, somebody that you like in kind of that organizational depth kind of a role, somebody that has a lot of NHL experience. So fingers crossed that Ruhwedel makes it through, but we'll obviously see what happens. Figure we can pretty much call it there. Thank you guys so much bearing with me today. Clearly my voice is not 100%, but I really do appreciate you guys tuning in. If you guys would like to get in touch with this podcast, please send an email to lockedonnyrangers@gmail.com. Once again, that is lockedonnyrangers@gmail.com. Definitely give us a follow on Twitter as well, @LO_NY_Rangers. Once again, that's @LO_NY_Rangers. And definitely subscribe to Locked On New York Rangers YouTube channel. Thanks again, guys. I will see you next time.